Welcome to Damsels in Dialogue, a podcast dedicated to female protagonists in fiction, film, and the stage, co-hosted by India Marie Paul
and Katie Zetter. For our third season, we cover animation royalty as we discuss the female protagonists in the Disney princess franchise and the impact they've had on women of all ages.
This episode, we journey to the highlands with an outspoken and brave force of nature, Merida. Welcome, everyone, to our fourth episode this season with the Disney princesses. We get to talk about our Scottish and only Pixar Disney princess, Merida, today, and the movie Brave. I'll be upfront, it's not my favorite of the movies. And if you listen to Maiden Madness, you've heard some of that. But I do think she was an important, different version of a princess. There's still a lot of things about her that I find problematic, which we will talk about both things. So we'll give her like a fair balance.
A little bit of everything.
Today. Yeah, we'll try to balance her out. It's an original story. This actually isn't based on any fairy tale or folk tale. It's inspired by Brenda Chapman, who is the director and the story originator. Her relationship with her daughter and some of her Scottish heritage. She's American, but she has a little bit of Scottish lineage, so they really deep dive into Celtic and Gaelic and Scottish folklore, which are all very different.
Yeah, because that's like different countries.
They're very different countries, but like the song that is sung,
and like they don't like each other. Different countries.
That's
like,
a whole other, yeah.
Like,
but there are things that are taken from a lot of that different, so it's a little interesting. But they did take a trip to Scotland, and there are very specific imagery and places that are taken directly from Scotland to the point where there's a website page on like Scotland, visitscotland.org or something that's like, here are all the places you can visit that were in Brave. And so there's, which is a point that Scotland was really excited actually about it, opposite of Mulan, where China tried to kill it. This one, Scotland was all in, trying to make it a tourist, like bank on that. Like they're trying to bank on the exactly. So Scotland was actually quite involved and excited about this film. But Brenda Chapman was actually the first female director at Pixar. And I think this is the 13th Pixar feature. It was released in 2012. It was actually announced in April of 2008, known as The Bear and the Bow. So between 2008 and 2012, they went with Brave, but she worked for Disney for a long time as a story artist. She directed, I think it was The Prince of Egypt was her first like directing, and then she pitched this original story to Pixar and got brought in to do this.
Well, also that's the second movie. So Disney made a firm change to their naming of movies because they wanted to make sure that it marketed to boys and girls. And it started with Rapunzel being changed to Tangled, and they wanted it all to be that one word and successful, and that's how it's continued.
Frozen,
Moana, things like that. The only one that really doesn't do that is The Princess and the Frog, but that was for an entirely different reason. But yeah, that was a very clear choice of they wanted it to follow in Tangled's footsteps of the naming.
Yeah, and I do enjoy that name. I think it's a great name.
It works for her.
I really wish that she would have been used anything as an inspiration, because I think a lot of the story got fumbled with things because it wasn't
there wasn't like an original thing from it.
There wasn't an
like
original inspiration. There was no thing like specific to Disney. Like even with Frozen, took the Snow Queen and completely like rearranged and did a lot of different things.
Oh yeah, it's a totally different story.
But I think
good.
It's still very good. But I think where Brave struggled was that it didn't have any kind of source material. And so you're trying to create an entire world and use of magic and use of story and tale that didn't really mesh, or it didn't feel like it had a really strong beginning, middle, end to me.
Yeah, and they don't do a lot of, when you think of some of the other movies that Pixar itself has done, which are great. They do a lot of great stuff, don't get me wrong. But it is either a little more generic, like you have WALL-E, where it's like, this is like a city. Yeah. You know, you're not like building off like a specific culture or anything. Yeah. Or it's like wildly fantastical. Like, you know, like full Monsters, Inc.
Yep.
Crazy, silly fun. And this one, I think, is tough because it kind of walks that line of being based in like a real culture in place, but you still have all this magic stuff.
Yeah. Well,
you know,
yeah.
Honestly, all the Disney princesses do this.
Yeah. This is the first Pixar film based in the past. All other Pixar films before this, and this is the 13th, have been based in today or a future version.
Yeah.
So this is also, I think, their first real trail into doing something historical. They set it in 10th century Scotland, but it's really vague because the costumes and the hairstyles and everything are not just 10th. So they didn't stick it in the same century for everything.
Not quite as bad as Ariel, but like close.
Yeah, it's really rough. It's really rough historically where things kind of sit. They set it in the 10th century, most likely because Scotland still had bears. Scotland does not have bears anymore. They have not seen bears since the 10th century. Oh, gosh. So the fact that the bear imagery is so important to this film was also a little frustrating when I realized there were no bears in Scotland.
Also, I'm so disappointed that at no point was there. I mean, there was no like really big unicorn reference. And unicorn is the national. Like, how do you have that? You're given such a gift at the unicorn being the national animal of Scotland, and you don't take advantage of that. Disappointment. Disappointed.
I did not know that was the name.
Yes,
Scotland.
Yes, Scotland. Yeah, it's unicorns.
Oh, that's so good.
It's not real. I mean, it is real, but unicorns aren't real.
Yeah. You know, there are just as many unicorns as there are bears in Scotland right now. So
yeah, I mean,
you know, at that point. So yeah, I was really disappointed to learn that bears didn't have a bigger significance to Scotland because it's such a huge part of this film. And like the imagery is everywhere and it just does not have any kind of historical significance as far as I can understand. So that was a little disappointing. So the director was inspired by fairy tales and Andersen and Grimm fairy tales. And there are bears in some Scottish folklore. And
there's a lot of bears in Andersen's.
Yes. Yeah. There are a lot. There are people turning into bears with witches. Like that does exist in Grimm fairy tales and the Hans Christian Andersen fairy tales. So there are examples of people turning into bears in that more than in Scottish folk tales.
Was there anything that the director, like you said, that she related it to her daughter? How old was her daughter at the time of?
Her daughter was 5, I believe, when she started.
Oh my gosh, she's so young. I thought, like 13-year-old trying to like figure it out. No, she is tiny when she's doing that.
I'm pretty sure when she started writing it, she was very young, and her daughter was a headstrong. They fought all the time, and but
she's 5.
Yeah,
Merida is not 5. I mean, I guess that checks out because Merida does behave sometimes a lot younger than some of the other princesses closer to her age.
Yeah.
So I guess it kind of makes sense.
And by the time she was younger, by the time that the movie came out, I think she was about to be a teenager. So it might have like the original idea for the story was before the announcement in 2008. Mm-hmm. So I think while she was writing it and working on it, her daughter would have been getting up into like the tweenish age. But it's very much based on her relationship. And it is really cool that she very specifically wanted to do something that was about a mother and daughter relationship. Because you don't see that hardly at all in the Disney movies. There's a lot more of father-daughter relationships, if any parent relationship happens.
And because of that, this passes the Bechdel test with flying colors.
Oh, yeah.
Over and over again passes the Bechdel test.
So I did appreciate that.
But 2 women in the main characters.
Yes. And I did appreciate that. This is the first female protagonist for a Pixar full-length feature.
How many female protagonists are there in Pixar features?
Well, we did Maiden Madness, I can try and count.
But a lot of them weren't the main characters.
I know.
They were side characters.
Or it was like an ensemble, like The Incredibles felt like an ensemble.
It's about him, though.
Yeah, the second
it's not
Incredibles
the second
was
one
about
that it's more about her, but
yeah,
that's like a whole movie.
Yeah,
not to bash Pixar, but that's something to think about. That
there are women.
What other leading ladies where it is about them?
Yeah. Joy was a big deal, but there's not a lot of female protagonists in Pixar films. It's even recently, the most recent one, Luca, like that was about 2 boys. So this is
not that there's not women in the stories. There's great women in these stories, but
but they're not the protagonist typically.
No.
So this was a big deal for Pixar too. They had the first female director and they had the first female protagonist, and they were doing a Disney princess movie at that point. Like, that's a big thing to take on. So there's a lot of pressure. They were doing something that was completely original, which maybe needed some more time, in my opinion. And there was some drama with Brenda Chapman, who, wrote it, directed it, because she got kicked off of it in 2011.
Yikes.
And it was given because they said that there were some story issues or that there was some messiness to it, and there were creative differences is the the thing behind it. She got kicked off of it, essentially. Still got the directing credit. She was not knocked down to co-director. They have two directors for this, because then Mark Andrews came in and took over. And this was a man who had never done a full-length feature.
Huh.
So they had the first female director, kicked her off of it, and then gave it to a decently new person to finish it. And this did win the Oscar for Best Animated Feature. So she did get an Oscar for it, and he got an Oscar for it. But it was a very odd situation.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look great for Pixar that the first female director they had ended up getting kicked off her own story that she pitched.
Yeah.
So that's not great track record. But I think it all kind of goes into the issues that we have with the story.
Yeah. And we have seen Disney has done with Frozen 2. Yep. They have done another story where they have to build all from scratch. And you can see the nonsense of them trying to build it from scratch. And it's a lot. It's a lot. They go through years of figuring it out. So I totally understand it needing work and maybe it not reading out as it's playing off in your head and all that kind of stuff. So to give Merida the benefit of the doubt, if it was anything like how they were putting together Frozen 2, I feel for them. I feel for them trying to put it together and build it.
Yeah. I was thinking about that when I read that it was just an original tale. I'm like, oh, this has the same issues that we had with Frozen 2, which we've discussed in another podcast. It feels like it needed more time to percolate, or there needed to be some revisions that just didn't happen with the story. And so, I think it fell victim to a lot of things. And we can talk more about some of her quotes about what happened and stuff in the after hours. But there was some drama. After hours. This was also Pixar's first fantasy film. Would be considered the fantasy film. And there's magical aspects to things.
Have they done a fantasy film since, other than they did where they're in the D&D world? And they go to find their dad, and his dad is pants. Is that the only one?
Other than Onward?
Also fantasy? Yes, Onward.
I don't nothing
I'm sorry,
bounces off my head.
I don't mean to call you out, Pixar, but a lot of these aren't first. A lot of them are almost onlys.
Yeah, there's,
which doesn't look great for you.
They've really dug into a very existential niche.
Oh,
and
for sure.
Luca had magic.
What if feelings?
But it was a
feelings?
Real world. What? Yeah, they've made me cry and do all the
what
things.
What if souls have feelings?
Oh, yeah. But they haven't
not dissing that.
Yeah, but they have not dove into the fantasy genre as...
Maybe that's intentional because Disney kind of has, the fantasy genre by the throat. So
it does,
maybe they're we don't need it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a really interesting thing to look at, with this being the only studio that has a Disney princess other than Disney, Walt Disney Animation. So,
because at the time they were more combined when Merida came out. They were more of a unit as opposed to two entirely separate studios. Yeah. And then a bigger split happened right after Merida.
Yeah.
So, which had nothing to do with her. It was just studio stuff. So when it started, because obviously they work with Pixar and stuff to do almost a lot of the other movies. Accidental only.
Yeah. A lot of things are just happening with this.
Poor thing.
Clans were a thing in Scotland, and still are. They're important. So that they're still they date back to the 12th century. So if they're putting it in the 10th century, that's a little odd. They were the main system until England invaded. You can watch Braveheart, right. There are arranged marriages. They were really common. So that's a major plot point. And they were almost always arranged by the clan chief. And then sometimes actually couples were given a trial marriage. I thought this was really cool, where they live as husband and wife for a year and a day, and then they decide if they want to like marry or not.
Actually.
Yeah. So like there were such thing as like trial marriages. Nice. So I thought it was like fun.
Yeah.
Historical fact about Scotland.
But Merida did not get a trial.
No.
She got a physical trial by her choosing.
Yes. So that's all I got for like origin stuff.
No, that's okay. We want to know what relates to her, and that's the stuff about the director is very interesting. Yes. I can't wait to hear the tea later.
Yes, they did have to create and develop a couple different softwares, which was really cool for Merida with the hair. Because she has so much hair, and it's curly, which is really, really hard to animate.
Yes.
So they had to do a lot of work. And, Merida had to walk so that Frozen and all the other new hair things that we have in Encanto and everyone can fly.
Run.
So can run and fly now because they're gorgeous. But a lot of things were created for that. That was really groundbreaking and beautiful. And something that Chapman really wanted for Merida is she wanted Merida to be a physical, very strong person and wanted to get dirty.
And she nailed it.
She does.
Crushed it.
She does.
Nailed it. She is not wrong. And it does make sense if she's basing this off a 5-year-old. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That kind of lack of care of self-preservation.
Yeah. You see that kind of, you see that like very young. Merida reads so much younger to me than I think they met
for
her
sure.
to. And
for sure.
Knowing that her daughter was younger and Jess is like yelling at her headstrong, it makes more sense to me that Merida is.
Makes so much sense.
So it's a very personal story, which is really cool. And her voice was almost voiced by Reese Witherspoon. Reese Witherspoon was hired to do Merida, but then was pretty much fired. Was gently let go because of her schedule, quote unquote. But it was really because she couldn't do the Scottish accent very well.
Amazing.
So she didn't get to be Merida. They actually got a Scottish actress.
That makes sense.
Kelly MacDonald does the Merida voice.
Nice.
So I thought that was really, really cool.
And was there a reason behind them making because they made a very clear choice that Merida would not sing, which is also one of the downfalls of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
They do have a beautiful song, Touch the Sky, in it, but a lot of kids cling to that music and play it in the car. And that's kind of where the hype comes from for a lot of the characters.
Yeah.
So do you know the reasoning behind it? I just know that was like a very clear choice of like, we're not doing this.
I think
I can't remember why.
The director, Brenda Chapman, really wanted to create a unique and different type of princess. And I have a feeling like it's not clear. There's not a whole bunch of clarity to it. There's not a great making of video. I was so mad.
Right.
Of Brave, but it seemed like the decision was to set her apart from the other Disney princesses, where she doesn't go sing beautifully. They wanted her to be a little more rough. So I have a feeling it was kind of an anti-Disney princess choice.
Yeah.
That I think she was going very much, and she does do that. Merida is the first Disney princess to not have a love interest, which is, that's a big deal, that's a very big step for a Disney princess, and I think it all kind of went her trying to go the other direction. She very specifically wanted to see, I think it was her who wanted to see Merida cleaning the stalls of her horse, so that you see her doing physical and dirty labor.
Well, and her horse also, Angus is not, like, Angus doesn't have a huge personality.
No.
Like these other, Angus is just a really beautiful horse.
Yes,
which, like,
gorgeous.
Get it, Angus.
Yes.
Gorgeous, huge, stunning, get it. But, like, he doesn't have that big personality that all of these other animals have.
Yeah.
Which also makes sense if they're trying to really step themselves away from the traditional.
Yeah, she doesn't talk to animals other than her horse, but like a person would talk to their horse.
Right, a person would talk to their pet. And
there's not animals that randomly know more stuff. Angus has a good instincts, like the horses always have better instincts, like, oh, we shouldn't go towards all these things.
But he doesn't like talk back as far
he's
as
not
like,
a dog.
he's not like Samson, where he like looks back and is like, he did that. Like,
So she, it's a very realistic depiction of a person, but with just a witch in the woods. So we can kind of dive into the movie itself. She's the first Disney princess to have brothers, so that's a fun
thing.
And she's the first Disney princess to not be based on a pre-existing literary character or historical figure. So she is also the first Disney princess who has no origin story.
Well, I guess, she's not the only one.
No, but she's the first.
Yeah. Well, getting into her.
Getting into Merida. So we talked about her a little bit in Maiden Madness, but what surprised you, or what thoughts have come up to you since then, now that we're focusing on her?
I think something that hindered my enjoyment of her, because her as a person, I think she's super fun. I think she's really important for the reasons that this director wanted her to happen. Her getting dirty and playing and doing things that traditionally boys would like and stuff like that. Like, I totally get that as far as its like importance. And her design is also really important because she is the top of her is still very thin, but she is curvy. She's got hips because she climbs things. She's really athletic. You see her rip the arms of her dress. So like there's a lot of like really great things about her. But I think I had the hard time with it because I first watched it as an adult with adult friends at home. Like I didn't go into it like, oh, I'm excited to watch a Disney movie. I went into it of, oh, I'm hanging out with my adult friends. Oh, let's watch a movie. I guess like Merida just came on.
Yeah.
So it was tough when at that point, like I said, I didn't go into it thinking like, oh, this will be a fun kids movie.
Yeah.
And like none of my friends had kids at the time.
Yeah.
So it was very much like, wow, like I totally understand her at the beginning of the movie.
Yes.
But my biggest concern was like, she doesn't get in any trouble for everything she does. And at the end, the mom has had this huge character arc, which is awesome. And Merida doesn't.
Yep.
Merida she has no consequences for her actions other than the events of the movie itself. She has zero, like after it, she gets exactly what she wants. And there's no you're not meeting in the middle.
Yeah.
You're not connecting with your mom. You're just like, oh, she's not a bear anymore. Great. So like, thinking back on that, I think that's why I didn't have as much fun with it. Cause like watching it again more as this is just a fun movie. I definitely enjoyed it more when you don't think about like those kinds of when you don't look for a big moral. And I know that sounds bad, but it's like the mom goes through so much and she grows so much. It's tough to see the main character not. And maybe that feeds in from the director. Maybe she thought she was making a story that was, oh, this is about Merida, but maybe it was really about her and she didn't realize it,
Yeah.
And that makes a lot of sense coming like from what you've said.
Yeah, it does feel like the mom goes through the most character work and development in the story. And there are a couple moments where I was on board and then I lost it. And I started pinpointing them. Okay, I love the opening. I love seeing young Merida with her family. Yeah. I loved seeing her and the mom play. I thought that was beautiful. And then I'm on board. I love that she stands up like, I don't want to do this. She felt like a teenager, not really knowing how to express her feelings.
Right. The classic, I'm going to fight for my own hand. Like,
yes. Great. It's amazing. Yes, I loved it. Yeah. Like that was her and her mom.
I love when she rips her dress.
It's so good.
I don't know. That's like such a powerful moment of like,
hair down.
I don't need this.
Yeah. I love that they, like when she is uncomfortable, she's in the tight dress and her hair's all stuffed away. Like that's great. So there were really beautiful moments and I was there. I was there for that. I was there for her and her mom being like, stop. And she's just shooting and she splits the arrow like the best Robin Hood ever. I'm like, I'm here for it. When she's riding through the forest on Angus target practicing and like, it was
that whole
beautiful
montage to Touch the Sky.
Yeah.
Is so cool.
Yes.
Like of all the things that she's doing and that's her big like, oh, she's 16 and grown up and this is what she's like. Like I thought it was a really well done introduction to her character.
Yeah. She doesn't get an I Want song, but you see that she feels trapped and it's not who she is. Like you kind of start to understand her.
And like the Touch the Sky kind of is her I Want song. She just doesn't sing it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like you hear in the lyrics and like the pushing rhythm and all of her. She's like literally in that song. She is climbing up like a cliff.
Yeah.
To get as close to the sky as she can. Like
beautiful.
She is always reaching for the next adventure and wild thing, not a Sadanami queen.
Well, and that's the I Want song is so important. And not everyone needs like a very specific one or need like Mulan's is more like I don't know who I am.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
But one of the critiques that I've read of people who there's a lot of debate of like, is she great? Is she not great?
Yeah.
Online, and one of those like, what does she actually want to achieve? Like, what does she want?
Question.
And I don't know.
Because we know what she doesn't want.
We
know what she doesn't want. We know that real well.
Exactly. So I think that's also one of the missing pieces to understanding her and making her likable. Because as Howard Ashman has said, the I Want song makes you fall in love with the leading lady, and then you root for her the entire time to get what she wants. Right. So without that, you're also missing a key part to the classic storytelling.
And it's like hard to connect and relate. Like you brought a Mulan. It's so easy to relate to.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, who am I? Where do I fit?
Yeah.
Or Belle, who we'll talk about next week, that I want much more than this provincial life. Like, and here it's a lot of, I just don't want that. Like, that's not the life I want. Okay, cool. But like, what do
you could say I want freedom, but what does that mean? Like, even Mulan's vague, I want to look in a mirror and see someone that I recognize feels like a more achievable goal than just I want freedom. So like, it's like, I think that was a key point that was missing in the story. Yeah. But where she really, really lost me was when she goes to the witch and she doesn't say, I want to get out of getting married. She doesn't wish for her fate to change. No. She very specifically wishes to change her mom.
Yeah. And the best
not her dad.
She's shocked by that. Like you're so, well, because the dad's not doing anything. Why would she wish
anything
on her dad?
But he's the chief. He could say no. Like,
but he's not, because he's being the himbo. He doesn't run. He's an idiot. This is the decade. This is the era that Disney starts to make the dads like just big, funny idiots.
Yep.
Like, which very funny, but like no brains.
Yep.
So they are just kind of side characters, and they don't, you don't have the King Triton who's like instrumental.
Yeah.
And, you just see like a large child. Like he is just so he really doesn't do anything. It's very set up like the mom runs the entire place, which is very common for Disney and Pixar later in like in this era of film, which is kind of frustrating. And it makes me so mad, piggybacking off what you said of, doesn't say dad. It says specifically mom, not let me fix what's happening, just like fix mom. And then she has the audacity to be like upset that mom is changed. Like, no, you did this. You asked for this specifically. Like, I know you didn't say turn my mom into a bear, but like you said specifically to change her. And then it happened. And then she was like shocked and is like, well, it's still your fault.
Yeah.
And the whole time it was her fault. It was never.
It's the witch's fault. It's not my fault.
Right. I just wish there was a moment where like when Merida has the tapestry and maybe there's a moment of, okay, maybe it's not just mom. Maybe it's not, maybe, like, did I, like even under her breath, if she said, did I really say this? Like just anything.
Yes. The tapestry is that was another moment for me, because if she had even looked, if I had gotten a look of regret and I rewound it just to make sure that if I missed it and there's not one look of regret after she cuts the tapestry, the mom, on the meantime, is trying to get a burning bow out of the fire and says, what have I done?
Oh, yeah.
That's why you like mom and you're on her side.
You love mom.
Like,
you feel bad for her because mom is like struggling with this. My husband doesn't know what he's doing. So she's running the kingdom. Yeah. And
there's going to be a war if my daughter doesn't get married.
Right. And the next people in line to the throne are toddlers who are crazy.
They're the worst.
Like, she has no... I love them, but
they're the worst.
They can't. Like, she's like, this is like decades before they can like actually help around the castle. You know what I mean? They're just like chaotic.
Yep.
So... it's like how, like the poor thing is like literally dealing with so much stuff. Yeah. And you feel bad for her. And for Merida to just show so little concern other than, oh no, mom's a bear.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, okay. So she goes, if she had been vague about changing her fate, or like, I want to keep myself from having to be married. If she could have been vague enough, and the witch, like, there's always a catch with spells.
Yeah.
So like, she still could have turned into a bear, but she didn't have to word it, change my mom. That really upset me.
Yeah.
And then she comes back and she feeds mom, and mom looks like she's about to pass out. Queen Eleanor is like trying not to like pass out and puke on everyone.
Have, like, a breakdown.
Yeah. And like trying to keep herself together, is trying not to puke, trying to escape the things. And Merida keeps asking her, not, oh my gosh, are you okay? What have I done? She's like, how you feeling about the marriage? Just constantly throughout the entire time before mom changes into a bear. Like, and there is a moment at the end where she says, I'm sorry. And she has the big speech about, I will marry someone because I have to, because it's what's right. And then mom keeps it from happening. So there's like a really tiny window where there's supposed to be a character development. Mm-hmm. And I understand that she doesn't say it's my fault until the end, because that's the
for
arc.
Sure.
But she can still be regretful without saying the words.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm really, really upset about with the character.
And even then, when she got to that moment, it was very anticlimactic. Like, the climactic moment was killing off and finishing off the big bad bear. Like, that was the bad guy of the story. And that was the climactic moment. It wasn't, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It was, we've just defeated a bear.
I've thought about this a lot, and I'm going to take the one F-bomb for the show.
Take it.
What the fuck is Mordu about? And why do we care?
Mordu.
Why do we care?
Mordu.
Why do I care about him? It doesn't really tie into the story in a way that makes sense.
They wanted a big bad guy, and they don't like bears. So, it makes sense in the story. That didn't bother me at all.
But because the arc of Mordu, he just became such a huge part of it.
Oh, for sure. Why he became a huge part, I don't know. But like, having that story and having the little side plot makes sense, because she literally turns into what her father hates most.
Yeah. Like that, the tension of that is great, but why he comes back in the end, really, and why he's like so prevalent in the last half of the movie.
The most important part of like the last, like the final finale.
It doesn't like
that was that. It just like took away from Merida being honest and trying to figure it out, you know?
Yeah. Maybe that's why it feels anticlimactic. You might have just like hit the nail on the head because that's like the 11 o'clock number. It's not the finale.
Right.
Like, we have an entire chase scene and fight and huge moment.
So hardcore. Like, the fight goes hard, which is great for Merida. We love it for you.
Yeah. You know, she does, but that makes the actual story's arc feel so much less important. And that might be why, like, I'm like, oh, she does say the thing. She takes she takes the blame. She's about to say, I'm going to marry someone, and mom stops her from doing it. She's about to do it and she talks about being changed and all of that. Like, she has that moment, but why do I feel like it doesn't exist? And I think that's why. Because we have the bear chase and the huge battle afterward. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And like, all the clans come together. I do like the aspect of having the common enemy, and that kind of like gets rid of the potential for war, you know?
Yeah.
But it just I don't know. I wish the finale was, you're right. But like, the finale should have been Merida coming to terms with everything.
Yeah.
And then it did kind of make me disappointed that in the end, like, she just gets everything she wants. And there's no, like, it's not like her and her mom come together to fix anything.
Yeah.
It's literally just her mom entirely backtracking and covering for her, covering just like she covers for her husband, just like she covers for her kids, the 3 boys, you know. And I was like kind of disappointed. Not that she needed to like be in super big trouble, but it would have been nice for her to maybe pipe up in the middle of that and be like, well, what if we did this to help unite the clans?
Yeah.
I think that would have, I don't know.
And I also am a little disappointed that mom was a bear, because they didn't really get to talk or they had like those nonverbal things, and the montage of them like being in the wild and her learning to fish is like really, you see Eleanor being really uncomfortable and Merida teaching, you see Merida teaching her about being not queenly. Yeah. But you don't see Merida really learn her mom's side of things until the very end when she has one speech. I don't know. Yeah, it just feels a little lopsided. It is really cool. I mean, seeing her be able to survive out in the wild and teaching her mom stuff is really great. Like, that's really cool. The fact that they fought and the back and forth of them actually having the conversation they needed to have, but to Angus and to Dad, that was really great. Yeah. Like, that was really cool. And I understand that mothers and daughters needing that tension of not quite knowing how to talk, because as soon as you try, it like becomes a fight. Like, that's great. I love that. But like, what if something happened in the kingdom and they had to go solve it together? What if they were the two who had to go work together to do something? Like, I don't know. It just what
if there was truly they had to fight the bears? Yeah. Or they had to do something with more to and like mom was like, you can't go because you're a princess, and she's like, no.
Yeah.
And they all go into battle together. Like, I don't know. There's so many options where you could have gotten the same point across. Yes. But it would have not come off as a whiny kid getting what she wants. Because sometimes it comes off like that. And that is kind of frustrating. Because like her as a character, like her at Disney and everything is super, super fun. Yeah. I don't like at Disney that they overdo her makeup.
They
overdo it a lot.
Yep.
And I don't like that because she is very much like not, like match her crazy eyebrows to her hair. Yep. You got to do that. Give her some mascara so her eyes are open. Yep. But like she actively doesn't wear makeup. So, and I'm always confused every time I see her. I do appreciate they give her the green dress. So it's very easy to move around, run around in, like super fun. And like, absolutely, who wouldn't want to like play at the park with Merida? Like, she's so fun. Yep. But I just never understood why they put so much makeup on Merida. Like, she has like full thick eyeliner. Yeah. And stuff in some face character shots. And I'm just like, what do you, I get it if you're like up on a, on a parade float or something. And like you're being seen from a distance, so you got to play everything up. Yeah. But Merida famously she's not in the castle. She's like running around like Peter Pan, Yeah. So which is great. I'm like very confused. Oh, it's very her. Yeah. I'm very confused when I see these like super done up pictures because I'm like, Merida would not be cool with that.
Yeah. Well, there was a huge, so when she was officially put into the Disney coronated, she had new art come out that was 2D. And there was a huge controversy about it because they made her curvier. They gave her lots of makeup. They made her look more put together, like standard princess. Yeah. So they gave her a huge makeover. And
she does have like big legs and hips, but she doesn't have a big bosom at all.
No,
like,
they like,
she's not balanced.
It was bad. Like they completely redesigned her to look. And to the point where there was a petition that someone just randomly made, like on change.org or something. And the director, Brenda Chapman, signed it and came out saying, this is ridiculous. Like she was so mad that they did it. And to the point where there's enough signatures where Disney revamped what they had done to lessen what they had done with the character art on it. But yeah, it was the point
if you have to make her prettier to sell, you're missing the point. Yeah. Like you're missing the point of Merida. Yeah. And the more fun aspect of her is the I don't care what I look like. I'd rather ride my horse.
Yeah, like, that's it. And which she's like, beautiful.
Right. And how the dad describes her, like, oh, my hair flowing in the wind. Like how he cracks me up. And he's not wrong. Like that is what makes Merida so fun as a person. Yeah. The best role model? Don't know. But as like, just someone who would be a blast. Like, can you imagine like her and Rapunzel?
Oh man,
like running around in the woods. I mean, they'd be a riot. Like,
there's some beautiful moments, and I'm sure parents watching it can relate. Of the mom and daughter arguing, but like her and the dad doing some big old gossip about just all the people
being best buds.
Yeah, like that's really great. Where he's really impressed when she like climbs the firefall. You know, like that's really cool. And And I was disappointed when it was a mother-daughter movie, but all you saw was combat until the end. And maybe that was the point, because I know there are relationships like that exist as well.
For sure.
But it made the roles of mom and dad feel very caricature-y.
Yeah.
And him specifically, because he didn't really seem to have any kind of grasp of being responsible. So, and like, I'm sure there are people who feel like that in their relationships. And so, like, that is representing that kind of relationship, but it felt like a very two-dimensional look at that in a way that was
for sure
disappointing.
For sure.
But I love that the 2D art for the parks was so bad that the director went and signed a fan-made petition.
Good.
And like released a statement.
Get your girl right.
And they listened and they did lessen what they did to her, because you can look up it's bad. Like, it does not look like Merida at all.
Well, they also came out with, like, fairly recently, they came out with like a fantasy sparkle thing of all. Yeah. So it's like every once in a while they like redo the princesses, and like the newest one is very much like a feminist forward dream big princess is their latest campaign.
Yeah.
And every time they make a new little campaign, they like redraw the characters. Now you have, like Cinderella's like holding the shoe like a sassy girl. Everyone's doing something different. In a previous one, and I don't know if it's this one, I don't think so, because this is still fairly recent, but I don't know. It was before the Dream Big Princess, and it was a line of like really sparkly, very, very girly, not so much merch, but a lot of like stickers and that kind of stuff. Like, it wasn't like on t-shirts a whole lot, but it was on like little girl things. And like all of them are like look almost way too adult. Like, all of them are way curvier. All of them have like money piece hair that's hanging in their faces. Like, Pocahontas was almost put in like, it's like a really weird like half gown thing.
Great.
It's the whole thing is strange. And Merida also looks strange in that one too. Yeah. And obviously that did not last very long, because that one in particular was like, nobody looks like that. Like, literally nobody looks like that. Like, like the only one who can get away with that is Jasmine, and she just wears the most makeup of everybody.
And it's supposed to be like 15. It's like she's one of the youngest ones.
Right. Like, like it makes sense. She's like legitimately a princess.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm unsurprised by that, and I love the director was like, nah, girl.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I think Merida, for a young girl watching Merida, because I only saw it as an adult, so I have my judgments about who she is, and unlike I loved Ariel's teenagerness, this teenagerness rubbed me the wrong way. Not because she's outspoken, not because she's blunt, but because she lacks a kindness to other people. That really kind of upsets me. Like, even when she's making jokes with her dad, she's really mean about the guys.
She comes off closer to like tween.
Yeah.
12, 13, trying to figure out, like, doesn't quite know how to exist socially in this new side of life where you're kind of expected to be adult, but you're like nowhere near adult,
Yeah.
Whereas like by 16, you're right, Ariel reads 16.
Yeah.
Merida reads much younger than she is, which makes no sense if she is the oldest kid by a significant amount.
Yeah.
And has been raised in this castle.
Yeah.
Like, being surrounded by this for so long.
Yeah.
Like, it's just simple, just uncaring, could not be bothered to learn anything about how her kingdom is run.
Yeah. I don't know. Am I supposed to feel bad for her because she lives in a castle? Like, I don't know. There's a little bit of that going on too.
Yeah.
Where because she does have the freedom from dad. If dad had been like, you're getting married, and mom was like trying to be like butting heads with her, but understands why she's frustrated, like maybe that could. But her dad's like, I don't really care. Like,
oh no, dad is no brains, only funny.
Yeah.
Still love him, but
he's hysterical. But I think she's important for little kids to watch in the sense of knowing you don't always have to be graceful. She's very not graceful.
For sure.
You can say what you need. You can be dirty. You can be. I love when she's upset and she just grabs a sword and like attacks her bedposts. That's great. Like, that stuff's great. She's just swinging swords around and she's very physical. It is a very different her movements, I think as well, was very unique and had to be software be created for her because the movements were so different than what other princesses and characters have done before because she's so physical. So she's important in that way. And she's not someone I would say is a role model, but I think that version of a rough and tumble woman is great. I really like
for
that.
Sure.
It's I think it's the lack of specifically kindness. And you don't have to be sweet and kind. Like kind and sweet are two very different things.
Oh, absolutely. So absolutely.
I think that is missing from her because you can be outspoken and blunt and stubborn and all those things, and you can also be kind. So I feel like that is a little bit missing role model-y for me. And the change mom, not that her situation like that. But I lost her like soon as
she could have had her "I want" moment.
Yeah,
in The Witches, even without a song, she could have had her "I want" moment.
Yeah,
of like Witch asking for clarification, and she's like, "No, I want this life. I want
to be free. I don't want to be the prince." Like you could do
right. Or I want to rule how I want to rule, or whatever. We don't even know. We don't even know. We couldn't even tell you what she wants. But that doesn't really happen there either because it's just fix mom things. There's something wrong with mom.
Yeah. And then I don't like to harken her to Arrow because they're very different. They're both redheads, but they both feel like teenager tweens to me. So that's why I like them like that. And they both get in a fight with their parents and then do something really rash and shit happens. So
absolutely.
When Ariel signs the contract, she's like tricked into it. But we know what she wants at that point, and she does get in a fight with her dad. So it's very specifically, I'm going to go do this to spite him.
Yeah.
But Merida, I don't know, the wanting to the wanting to change her mom just bothers me so much.
Well, and what she does is her rash judgment isn't, hey, fix dad so I can go to the human world. It's, hey, I want to get to the human world because that's something that I want.
Yeah. That it's such a specific distinction, and it's so important because she literally could have wanted anything even slightly vaguely, and mom could still turn into a bear. Like there's plenty of room in this magic spellcasting world for that to happen. And her saying "I'm sorry" and "I love you" to her mom breaking the spell was beautiful. Yeah. Obviously, the tapestry wasn't going to be enough. We all knew that was not going to work.
Right.
But so that moment was really beautiful, seeing them come together, and the art is stunning for this movie.
It's awesome.
It's gorgeous. The music is gorgeous. I love the use of bagpipes. Some of the humor is really great. I love that you have this like brash, like ready to fight at any drop of a hat. It's great. And Scotland was on board. There's all these things working for it. And I there's just those missing elements of the role model and the heroine that we're missing in it.
And it shows. Yeah. Because there are other princesses from that era. Because we are not in the Disney Renaissance anymore. No. I don't know if that has a name of where we're kind of at now, but
maybe in a couple of years they'll have one. I think they're figuring that out.
I mean, it shows because there are lots of characters that came out around Merida before and after that have been wildly successful, and she's not nearly as successful as the other princesses. How did she do in the box office?
She was okay. She wasn't a flop by any means.
Oh, no. It was still fine.
It wasn't, she wasn't a phenomenon. She was fine. I think people went to go see her, and people Scotland pushed it. So there were sold out things in Scotland. And so there were, from what I don't have the exact number at my fingertips, but she was definitely a success, but it wasn't, didn't exceed expectations, I don't think.
Right.
So she's kind of that medium, it was a good go.
It happened.
But obviously Pixar hasn't done another thing like that.
No.
So.
And part of that is they are entirely separate studios now.
Yes. Yeah.
So they wouldn't do necessarily another quote unquote Disney princess.
Yeah.
But they haven't done anything even remotely. Like Merida.
Yeah.
Since.
Exactly. So I think it was an adventure for them that had some turmoil in it. And some issues that they haven't quite tried to do anything like it again.
Yeah.
Onward was you're right. I think Onward might be the fantasy film they tried next.
Fantasy. And even then, that was heavily based in D&D.
Yep. So they did have origins.
They had a lot of source material. I mean, the story obviously wasn't, but the world was basically D&D. So.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, so there was more to dig in on the origins of that than this even. I don't know why a bear. I couldn't find any reasonings as to why it had to be a bear. The archery was just she wanted her to be strong and physical, you know, which is great. But I don't know why a bear, but bears are everywhere. You got Mordu, you got Mom's a bear. I do love the witch that everything in her, just everything in her house were bears.
Except for Sully.
Oh, Sully was in there.
Mm-hmm.
That's so sweet.
You can see Sully in there. There's like subtle hints to other Pixar movies in her shop. And we'll talk about this in After Hours a little bit, but there is a wild theory that she connects all of the Pixar movies.
Okay. I'm interested in that. I'll hold out till After Hours, but okay.
Yeah, you can look it up. There's like tons of clips because people like lost it when they saw, because obviously like everything's bear stuff, and they're like, was that Sully?
Yep. Which it makes me believe that she's a witch who can't do anything other than turn people into bears. Because the only two spells we see, like that's what she does. She can only turn people into bears. Because every wood carving other than Sully is a bear. So.
Oh yeah, and Sully definitely was just like an Easter egg.
Yeah. So it's funny for me to think about the witch only being able to turn people into bears. Yeah.
Get it?
Yeah. I do have a final fun fact to wrap us up. And it kind of ties into Brenda Chapman's journey. She ultimately was happy with the result, and she was proud of the movie, even if she did get booted out of it.
Okay.
She did feel like the mother-daughter relationship was still the integral part of it.
For sure. I mean, she's not wrong.
Yeah.
That still was.
Yeah. So she did achieve a lot of the things she set out to, which is great. She hasn't worked there since, I'm pretty sure. I think she's at Lucasfilm now. She had said something that they changed was that initially the entire movie, it was supposed to be snowing. That was one of the things she really wanted. She really wanted snow. And
why?
Because when her and the mom finally connected, it would start to melt. So she wanted that visual.
Oh, cute.
Yeah, she wanted that visual representation. Okay. And one of the reasons she thinks they changed it after, I don't know, that seems like a big thing to change after she left. I think she probably lost that fight early on.
Yeah.
Was because Scotland worried about their tourism. The entire movie was snowing. So that may be the key reason why they decided to not make it snowing the whole time.
Were they worried that people wouldn't come because they assumed Scotland would just be full of snow all the time?
Yeah. They assumed it wouldn't look as like enticing if it was just a snowing land. So that's my fun fact for why there's no beautiful snow representation to melt
like,
away.
Hold my beer.
Yeah. They're like, I want this visual story to happen. Never mind. We need sunshine because we want people to go to Scotland. So
amazing.
Yeah, that's my fun fact for Merida. I do like her, and I love Gaelic, Scottish things. Like I really enjoyed that aspect, and it's visually stunning. But she still is a very problematic hero character. Great, very problematic hero and role model to me for those reasons. So
we'd love to invite her to parties, though.
Well, yeah, I like her. She's hilarious. Like, you know, her lack of grace is not the first Disney person to have it, but she definitely adds to that, like, physical lack of grace.
Interesting to me, and what I like about her is that she does not have grace, but she is not clumsy.
Yeah.
They did not go, oh, we need her to be quirky, we'll just make her clumsy, which they do for so many princesses. Yeah. And for her, no. She is a strong, independent, graceless woman.
She's athletic. Yeah, she's athletic. You know, she's, I would say Mulan falls into that category of clumsy and lack of grace, and gets to be physically strong. But Merida from the get-go is very physically strong and an athlete. Yes. And that's really cool because you don't really see athletic Disney princesses as much, even now. So it's really cool that she is that. So I'll give her the plus on that. I enjoy that about her. That's our...
Thanks for listening.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to our Scottish princess. And I hope you listen next time where we go to France.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Damsels in Dialogue. Tune in next week as we take a trip to a provincial town and meet the bookish beauty, Belle.
If you enjoyed what you heard today, you can help us reach even more listeners by subscribing to the podcast and leaving a rating or comment on Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you are listening.
If you want to join us for even more discussions about Merida or extra thoughts about any of our episodes, head over to our Patreon. There you can support the podcast and unlock an entire library of our exclusive after-hour video podcasts, with new episodes arriving each month. You can also unlock research notes, bloopers, and more.
Follow us on social media and at our website on damselsindialogue.podbean.com. Until next time, this has been Damsels in Dialogue.
Have a nice day.
This podcast episode is sponsored by Royal Princess Parties, LLC, and is produced by Hello Out There Audio, part of Hello Out There Productions.